Hey, hi, hello, friends. It's me, Sans Makeup. Hi. So I'm going to do my makeup today and I'm going to talk to you guys and I'm just going to give you guys my thoughts on a couple of different things that are floating around. A couple of them are Amberlynn, then there's, just Chantal, which I'm going to leave towards the end because that's heavy. And then one more thing that it's kind of related but not really. I want to talk about Michelle McDaniel's recent answering any questions Q&A video that she did where she addressed the obese to peas. Yes, it's obese to peas. Obese to beast drama that she had with John a little while ago, especially if you guys remember, John had called her out for a video that she'd made talking about how she didn't understand they them pronouns. And so I want to talk about all of that. So I'm going to start with that and I'm going to do my makeup because I'm actually going to film something for my patrons today as well. It's been a little bit of time since I've actually filmed anything. You guys know, I've had a hard time recently. I've had some family stuff going on, and it's just a matter of having the emotional capacity between my work being absolutely soul-crushingly busy. I don't hate my work. I actually really like my work. But it was just really busy at work, and I just didn't have the emotional capacity with all my family stuff going on to really come on here and talk about stuff. And now that, I feel a little bit more settled in my own brain, even if my actual work schedule is still kind of crazy. I wanted to talk about it. First and foremost, on my face, I've got lotion. I use the Clinique Moisture Surge. That's the one that I've used recently that I like, but I also tend to use this Strivectin anti-wrinkle cream, which I think I got from Costco because it was cheap, and they don't tend to break me out. I have very sensitive skin. I tend to react very poorly to stuff that has perfumes in it, so those two things consistently work for me well, and then in the summer, I will switch to the Aqua Bomb, I think it's called. I forget what company makes it, but it's at Sephora. It's like a cute little container. Anyway, those are the things I use. And then underneath my eyes, which I think there's still little remnants of, it's the Kiehl's Avocado Eye Treatment. That stuff is really hydrating, and I forgot to put on eye cream last night, even though I put my face stuff on. I just forgot to do my eyes. I don't know. Whatever. It's been a hard day, all right? All right. Starting off with my face, I actually rebought this. I had this a very long time ago, and I recently rebought it because I thought it would be a really nice light thing to put on my face. I've actually had a lot of issues with wearing stuff that is too heavy because I'm wearing a mask all of the time, 8+ hours a day I have a mask on, and so I was breaking out. I'm still breaking out. You guys can probably see it down here, even my skin texture here. You guys know I have horrible skin. I've said it multiple times on camera too. Really sensitive, really problematic skin. I tend to break out a lot because of it. Not a lot, but enough, and I tend to get really bad clogged pores. So I figured this would be nice and light. So this is the Maybelline Dream Matte Mousse. I love this stuff. I bought this recently again, and then I remember why I stopped buying it, but at that point I'd already lost the receipt, so I don't necessarily recommend you buy it. I stopped buying this and all Maybelline products because they aren't cruelty-free. I thought they were. I haven't really been buying new cruelty-free, stuff that isn't cruelty-free anymore, so anything I've had has been from the past, but I forgot that this wasn't. I thought I mixed them and CoverGirl up, and then I got home and I was wait, and I checked, and I'd already thrown the receipt away, which is a really bad habit I have, where it's just stuff that's not very expensive. I just tend to ball up the receipts, and I'll throw them away. But I do also have a hoard of makeup, as you can see behind me. So a lot of stuff I have has just been sitting there. The only thing that gets regular turnover is my skincare stuff, which unfortunately I can't have a principled stand on as much as I would like because I have very sensitive skin and I don't tend to react well to a lot of different things. So all of that said, let's jump into it. There will not be video clips, but I still want to talk to you guys. Okay, my mirror is right here. So if I'm looking there, that's what I'm looking at. So the obese drama. So if you guys aren't aware what happened, I gave a little bit of a brief summary before, but I'll just talk a little bit more about it so you guys have a little bit of context to what I'm talking about. Obese, John, made a video talking about how, he was calling out a friend, he said, and he was, he looked very uncomfortable talking about it, and he seemed relatively sincere, I had thought, in his expressions. And he talked about how, Michelle made this video talking about how she didn't understand they, them pronouns and how he felt a little bit, not slighted exactly, but how he thought that, that wasn't something that Michelle should have done, that video was not the right video to have made, and that she was purposefully being, I guess maybe you could say she was being a little bit like bigoted would not really be the word, but maybe like unwilling to understand another person's point of view. Look, personally, when this came out, I actually even said I was going to make a video. And then by that point, I think Callie from Life of a Free Spirit had already made a video. And I'm like, all right, her video stands. I agree with a lot of what she's saying. So I didn't really bother making my own video at that point. The thing is, I thought that Michelle's original video was maybe a little pointless. Not like a bad way, but she talks through this entire process of how she's like, well, how she doesn't really understand they, them pronouns. It doesn't make sense to refer to one person, by a pronoun for multiple people, despite the fact that that's not really a thing. If you guys know the way that like monarchs prefer to be addressed, it's almost always been they, their royal highness, They don't even refer to themselves in the singular. They say we command it, not I command it. So that has historical precedent. So it's actually not that uncommon to refer to one person as multiple people. All that is to say, I didn't think there was anything particularly wrong with it. She just basically laid out her reasoning and how she came to the conclusion of, okay, I guess it's fine, like that. And I didn't think there was anything wrong with her video. I mean, I personally didn't agree with everything she said in there, but I rarely agree with the points of anybody 100%, And I didn't think there was anything particularly awful in her video. Like, she wasn't out there saying that, like, non-binary people aren't valid or anything like that. So I was like, it's a video. That's kind of my whole thought on it. Was just like, all right, it's a video. Those are her opinions. It's not a video that I particularly cared for. Not one of the videos that I, like, one of her better videos. But, whatever. I didn't really see any point in it. And then when John made his video addressing it, my first thought was, oh, had I missed something, right? Because we all bring our, like, emotional baggage, all of the context of our lives into it. And given that I am not non-binary, and I don't actually tend to watch John all the time anymore. I used to, but he does a lot more Twitch, I think. Streaming is where he streams most of his content. And I've said before, I just don't have the time to sit through and watch like hours and hours and hours of live streams. So this is the Makeup Forever Ultra HD Concealer. This is very old. Okay, this is so old that honestly I'm a little embarrassed to tell you. It's like 4+ years old. If it smelled weird or the texture changed, I would throw it away. But I'm trying to make, God, my voice. I have some water here in my lovely Alice in Wonderland inspired teacup cup. It's a mug technically, but it looks like a stack of teacups. I love it. I'm not shadily taking a sip of tea. It's just water. I just really like the mug. But if it, like, the smell of something had changed, I would throw it away. But I'm making a concentrated effort to actually get through all the makeup backlog that I have, especially for some reason concealers, because I seem to like buy like tens of them at a time. I only want to have like 2 to 3. And that's it. So I'm using everything I have up, even concealers that I don't particularly like. This one I do like, but Makeup Forever is once more not cruelty-free. And so I will not be repurchasing it. And there are actually better products out there that I would prefer. My personal favorite concealer is probably the Fenty one by Rihanna. Yeah, you guys know who Fenty's by. Anyway, so, I had originally watched that video and I thought to myself, oh, okay, I've missed something. She must have said something in that video that I missed. So I sat through and I watched his whole original video, and I want to say it was almost like an hour long, and I watched it on double speed because it was a lot. And no, not really. It was basically what I had said, and it felt to me kind of a little weird, right? Like, I'm a reaction channel and I do reaction content, but I tend to watch all the video all the way through, because what I found is that while first impressions in a reaction are important, a lot of times, if you're not watching the video through, at least originally when you're editing stuff down or giving it a quick wash through before you go and you talk about stuff, you can accidentally strawman people into saying something that they didn't mean, especially if you don't go back and correct it, right? So, like, I have people watching me say I say something, I make a big deal about, like, Chantal saying something, and then at the end of the video, she's like, she says something that completely contradicts that, right? Like, she said that, she's, like, feeling not well, and she says, I'm going to go to a store and I'm going to buy 50 things, and I rail and rail and rail at her about how dare she go out and she buy stuff, and then at the end of the video, she goes, oh, you know what, on second thought, I'm not going to go, I'm not feeling well, that wouldn't be fair to other people. But I don't really address that point, or I accidentally cut it out, or I just don't emphasize it and people miss it in my video. I'm accidentally like creating the false impression that she did a thing or that she was considering doing a thing when she wasn't actually doing that thing. And a lot of his video came across like that, especially because Michelle's point at the end was just that, oh, I guess it isn't really for me to understand. Not everything is for me to understand. I thought, okay, cool. And she made a response video. She talked about how she thought that he was unfairly portraying her, which I agree with. Even though I thought, okay, she seems a little bit more upset at his response video than I thought was warranted, because Michelle wasn't like angry by anything. She's very comedic, but I thought that she came across as being a little bit more peeved off than I thought maybe the situation had called for, especially if you think that the other person is coming from a well-intentioned place and maybe just misunderstood your point, which you can accuse him of maybe being a bad content creator, but I wouldn't have necessarily thought that he was being like a shitty person. So her reaction didn't make any sense to me. The context of her newest video, however, really clears it up. It paints the picture of John being somebody who does not particularly care for Michelle as a friend or as a creator, but more as a source of, I guess, protection on the internet, right? Like, he has a very family-friendly, very, like, neutral, very, like, aw, shucks, you guys, sensitive persona. Whereas Michelle definitely has more of a, I don't give a crap what you have to say about me persona, right? Like, that is who they are as people on the internet. I don't know either one of them personally, so I can't say. The powder that I am using is in the lid of the Maybelline Fit Me. It is some conglomeration of all the multiple different powders I have. I don't really know how much of this is the original Fit Me powder. I tend to just combine all of my powders into one if I like the properties of one or another, and I'll just like mix them together until I get something I like. Because I like a little bit more of a yellow powder, but the banana powder that I bought a while ago was too yellow and it was making me look like a clown. More so than I regularly look like a clown anyway. And so I just found it, a little bit more clarifying as to why she had been so upset in that original video. He would reach out to her anytime he needed anything. And for a while, Michelle went along with it. She didn't really see anything wrong with it. Like, your friends can reach out to you for help. I've had friends reach out to me, both who are internet friends and who are not. But vice versa, if I've ever needed something and I've reached out to them, they've been very responsive and they've also had my back, like, not in an unreasonable way, but say if I needed like a video link that I couldn't find, or in more personal setting, like I'm like, hey, can I borrow this thing from you? Can you pick me up, drop me off, whatever? And it seemed like it was a very one-sided relationship that they had. Now, my own personal opinion on that is that I think that maybe John felt a little bit jealous. Michelle has had some incredible growth. I've actually been a subscriber of hers since she had like less than 20,000 subs, and she's past 500,000 at this point, and she'll probably, given the way that her channel is growing, be at 1 million sooner rather than later. And John's growth has been a lot less, I guess you could say, plenty. It's been a lot less abundant, and I think part of the reason for that is that the topics that he talks about are maybe not as trendy. Like, Michelle has a way of expressing herself. Her editing is much more tight, and she's a very engaging orator. And I think that while he is a very charismatic person in his own right, Michelle definitely has a bit more concise editing style and a bit more fun in her videos that I think he lacks. All in all, she portrays him as someone who not unwitting, like not like being problematic on purpose or like trying to take advantage of her, just comes across as someone who wanted to benefit from their friendship without really considering the friendship as anything more than that one-sided interaction. And honestly, I try not to get personally invested in the YouTubers that I watch, because often I found that the person they portray themselves to be online is not who they end up turning out to be, and it always upsets me. This is the Kat Von D primer and Prime and Correct in Skin. I have had this well before Kat Von D came out as being anti-vaxxed. Okay, like I've had this so long, and I've used it. I've been using it consistently. It's just such a massive tube. I am never gonna finish this. I've been using it for years and years and years, and I still have like that much. There's so much left in here. I mean, like, me throwing away the product isn't going to change the fact that, like, I have it because I already spent the money on it. She already has my money, so I'm not going to throw it away. But it's like, it's so much. Why won't you end? Anyway, the palette I'm using is the Oden's Eye and Judy palette in the Red Dragon. This is a beautiful palette. I got all three. They're beautiful. If you guys haven't tried Oden's Eye, I think Angelica Nyquist, if I'm saying her if I'm saying her name right, also put out a palette with them recently. It's the Gila palette. I really want to get that as well. It looks beautiful. Their formulas are amazing, so highly recommend. She had just seemed so done with it, and she didn't want to address it, but, you know, people asked, and I think that it is good for her to have disclosed kind of what happened, because otherwise people will invent a story if they don't have one, especially for something that played out as publicly, right? Like, if you guys had a public disagreement and decided to not be friends anymore, that's one thing. But if you guys are, like, he made a public video and she was well within her right to respond publicly. But it painted John in a light that I thought was very, very unflattering. It painted him out to be as someone who was very self-serving, someone who isn't very, you know, genuine. And unfortunately, with YouTube being what it is, being genuine is a very, very important thing. Like, being who you are, being true to yourself is an incredibly important aspect of being on YouTube. There's a perception of authenticity that you get when you have someone on YouTube that you don't really have when it comes to watching people on, say, the TV. And it is like a fundamental aspect of being a YouTuber. And if you lose that authenticity, you're going to start hemorrhaging subscribers. And I think his authenticity really took a hit, for me at least, with that. So if you're a fan of John's, if you watch his content and you watch Michelle's content, please let me know what you thought of the Obese to Be situation. Please let me know what you thought about her recent video talking about all this stuff. So the color that I blended out through my eyes, by the way, was Sunrise, and now I'm using a little bit of Yin, and I'm just going in and I'm deepening the corners and my crease a tiny bit, not too much. I want to keep this pretty light. This is the kind of look that I would do if I'm going to work. I have a pretty flexible workplace, and also I work in a laboratory. Nobody cares what I look like. But I use a little bit more makeup than I think a lot of other people do. And I don't actually tend to wear foundation anymore, because I wear a face mask. I just put a little bit of concealer on around my eyes. Nobody sees my mouth anyway, so what's the point? Next thing that I want to talk about is Amberlynn. So Amber has had a couple of videos come out recently that I kind of wanted to discuss really briefly. Amber, like I said, has been very, very boring to me, and I've not really been engaged with her channel for quite a while. But she put out a video recently talking about my deepest, darkest secret, and it was a secret that everyone had already known, that she had not only been housebound, but she had been bedbound for part of the year when she was at her heaviest, where, you know, she was bathing basically in bed with a sponge. Now look, I feel bad for Amber. I really do. She's had a rough go at life, right? Like, she hasn't exactly had the easiest childhood. Her you know, parents being addicts. Her mom pulling herself out of addiction is amazing, but that couldn't have possibly been an easy thing for her to have gone through in life. All that said, the way that she's living her life now isn't, I wouldn't really say she's living. She exists. From moment to moment, she exists, you know, she's there, she does stuff, she goes outside, but she isn't really living. She isn't really doing any of the things that would bring her pleasure. You know, she talks about writing. She doesn't really write. She talks about, you know, going back to college. She talks about going out. All those things that make you a functional member of society, that make you happy. You know, she might not want to travel, but she doesn't even have the option to travel. She said multiple times that she wants to go to California, and right now travel would be so difficult for her at her size, if it's even safe. So I think that, you know, I sympathize with her a lot, but my sympathy ends when it comes to actively deceiving your audience. When you've got a platform as big as Amber does, and she's at almost 200K subscribers, and you talk about how heavy you were, and you never mention the fact that you were bedbound, that you were housebound, and you pretend and you lie, and you can come back and say later. And I understand that's like an embarrassing thing to admit, but people had assumed as much when they saw the mattress on the floor. There was a lot of speculation that Amber was bedbound and housebound. And she actively lied, and she avoided the topic, and she actively lied some more. And she painted the picture that, oh yeah, I'm fine. I might be 400, 500, 600 almost pounds, but I'm functioning just fine. And that gives the impression to people that I too can be just fine. Amber is an anomaly, if anything, okay? At her weight, given that she's already had cancer, like I would have assumed her health would be in a lot more dire straits. But just because she is lucky in that regard doesn't mean that everyone else should be, and it doesn't mean that you should ever let your health spiral and get that bad out of control. So the fact that she actively lied, because that's what she did, right? People had assumed and they'd lobbied the accusations at her, and she had actively deflected. And now she's coming out and she's saying that. I mean, I'm not surprised that she was. She was incredibly heavy at that point. The human body isn't meant to accommodate that kind of weight. It's just not. Your bones can only keep up with so much. The color that I'm spreading on my eyes, which by the way is absolutely phenomenal, is called Amber. Fittingly, I thought. And the other video that she made was talking about how she is quitting her 100 days of weigh-in. She won't be sharing it anymore. Now, look, I personally think Amber should not be sharing her 100 days of weigh-in at any point anyway. I don't think she should be weighing herself every single day, because your body fluctuates from day to day, you know, like for all that she talks about water weight a lot, it actually does play some amount of role, right? A woman can have, because of hormonal fluctuation, she can retain a little bit more water on one day and like lose a little bit more water on the other. And your weight can fluctuate just like a pound up or down, given how much she weighs, probably a little bit more than that. That's why weighing week to week at approximately the same time in the day is generally a better course of action than weighing every single day. There's also the psychological implications of it. One of the reasons I started watching Amber is because I relate to her a lot. I know what it's like to like look in the scale and see a number you don't like and think, oh, all my efforts are just wasted. What is even the point of that? I'm applying the color Overheat in my inner corners. And what is even the point of that? Because like I'm trying here and I'm not even losing any weight because I'm weighing myself every day. And so I just stop and I just eat and I do whatever I want. And that's not a rational, reasonable way to behave. And I personally think that that is something that, you know, she does often. We've seen her do it often. I just don't think that she thought it through, really. But Amber never really thinks all of this through. I think the money comes much more in first place than her health does. And that's been a trend on her channel for a very long period of time. And right now, she said that she's going to be enrolling into a outpatient treatment program for eating disorders. I am very happy to hear that. I am so happy to hear that. You have no idea. And yet, I'm gonna have complaints because, you know, I'm not saying this is negative. Like, I'm not saying that this is what she's doing, but the thing about any kind of therapy is that there's the concept of buy-in. You cannot just do therapy. You have to engage with therapy. You have to think it through in therapy. You have to work to untangle the mess that is in your brain and your subconscious, and you need to make peace with your past. Okay? Those are all things that you need to do mandatorily in therapy, and you have to want to do it. I don't know why I can always do only one eye like that. And Amber has not really shown any ability or any desire to reckon with her past. And unfortunately, until she does that, she's not going to get any better, which is something I've said multiple times. I think my worry is that this program is going to end up being a lot like her, what was that multi-level marketing scheme diet that she'd done where she bought a whole bunch of the food and she had like the fuelings that she had to eat. I think it's going to end up being like that, where she's going to sink a whole bunch of money into going to a program. Because remember, Amber doesn't have health insurance. She's paying for this out of pocket. She's going to sink a whole bunch of money into this program. She's going to go for exactly like 2 days. She's going to get sick of it, and then she's going to not follow through. She's going to stop showing up to the appointments, and or she's going to show up, but she's not going to do any of the work, and or she's not going to do any one of those things. She's just going to ghost. And if it's an outpatient program during the pandemic, it's probably going to be online, which makes it even easier to flake. Because in-person accountability is a lot more difficult to avoid. You know what I mean? Like, it's easier to just dip on a video call and just say, I had connectivity issues. I know this, okay? I've dropped out of a couple meetings because I didn't want to be in them and I had connectivity issues. Anyway, I'm hopeful. I am hopeful, but I would not be surprised if Amber came back and she said, oh, you know, it wasn't for me, blah, blah, blah. Especially because in the same video where she talks about being bedbound, she also talks about, you know, the fact that she doesn't really believe that rehab is for her. Quite frankly, what she's doing right now is pretty similar to rehab, except without the forced weight loss. And I would think that forced weight loss for Amber right now would be a really, really good thing. Least we forget, Amber has not really been able to get I think it was a PET scan or a CAT scan. I forget which one. But she hasn't really been able to fit into the machine, and so she hasn't been able to check to see if her cancer has spread anywhere else. Not all cancers operate the same way. You know, some cancers take years and years and years to grow. For example, thyroid cancer tends to be very, very slow growing. But Amber has no way of knowing at all if any of that cancer had metastasized and if her cancer has come back because she cannot fit into any of the machines used for testing. I can understand that she might not want to go to rehab, but even if it's just to lose a bunch of weight at the get-go while she continues to work on her mental health with the professionals who are there, I would think that just getting maybe like 100 or 200 pounds off so that she can go and sit in one of those machines and they can test to see if her cancer has gone, I think just that would be a big enough boon for her to do it. Now, last thing is Chantal. Chantal's the reason that I'm actually doing my makeup while I talk, because her stuff is kind of heavy, and she's also really the person that I talk about the most on my channel, and she was also the one that has the most amount of emotional involvement that I just didn't have the capacity to deal with. She has reported Nader to the police now, and made an official complaint against him for assault and battery and sexual assault. And I have really complicated feelings about it. If you guys don't know, I think I've mentioned this before, I've been assaulted twice in my life. Both times I was underaged. One time I was 14, just turned 14. It left an impression on me. It's like scarring. It genuinely is. And it's still stuff that I have difficulty talking about and dealing with on a level any more than like the superficially mentioning it, right? So I can understand why going to the police is a good idea, because if he's assaulted one person, there's a chance that he could assault another. And I do believe her about him assaulting her. He has a history of aggression. He has shown other behavior that would make me suspect that she's not making that part up. And for all that Chantal is a lying liar who lies, Chantal almost always lies in a protective manner. She lies as a way to avoid responsibility and as a way to look better. She doesn't tend to make up stories that will make her look bad on purpose, if that makes any sense. And she's been pretty consistent with her details about the way that he's treated her, and it makes me feel like while there might be inaccuracies on how she's reading some situations on her part, because we all bring our past experiences, our emotions, all of that stuff into every situation we go into, I don't think she's entirely wrong. So I'm glad that she told the police, because despite the fact that I think that Chantal is generally not a good person, I think that her reporting him to the police will actually potentially keep other women safe. And here's where the complicated part of my feelings come in. I don't want to be the person who tells victims that they shouldn't go to the police, because I absolutely do. I think you should always go to the police. The problem is, in just this one instance, I really wish Chantal hadn't. And I'll tell you why I think she shouldn't have reported him. There is so much evidence online of her behaving in a manner that in a court of law, if you're looking at just hard evidence, is going to make her look very, very bad. It's going to make her look so bad. And he has a pretty solid case against her for being a stalker. Women have a history of not being believed anyway. And even if his actions are true, given how often Chantal lies and how often she's gone back on her word and how much information she's put out there that shows her sitting outside of his home just stalking him, I think that there is a high likelihood that if something like this comes to court, he's going to be able to say, she's stalking me and she's just doing this in revenge. Especially because, he makes this comment about getting a restraining order, and that's kind of where she goes off the rails and she decides to report him. And I absolutely think that that was the inciting incident. And despite the fact that I do think that he belongs back behind bars and I do think that he did this, I think that it's much more likely that either Chantal's going to get hit with a restraining order and or filing a false police report, or nothing is going to go forward because she's going to retract this. Instead, now she's just made him angrier and the situation is going to devolve further. I feel like in her situation where she has made such a public mess of her image, that it unfortunately might end up doing her more harm than good, which is not the same as saying that she shouldn't report him. It's just that I don't think she's thought through anything, and I worry that it's going to have much more long-lasting, far-reaching implications for her than it will for him, unfortunately. And when we talk about abuse, I 100% believe that Nader is abusive. 100%. I also think that Chantal is abusive. And I said this before, that this is where I feel like the term toxic comes into the relationship, right? It's not just that, she is in a domestically abusive relationship. She absolutely is. But so is he. Because just because you are not the one being physically assaulted doesn't mean that you're not in an abusive relationship, right? You can be, there's financial abuse, there's emotional abuse, there's verbal abuse. There's a lot of different forms of abuse that can go on in a relationship that don't leave any physical marks. And she definitely has financially abused Nader. Definitely. She stalks him. She harasses him online. She drives away his friends. She bullies him over the fact that, he is an ex-con. And if he wasn't such a garbage human being, I genuinely feel bad for him. But he is a garbage human being, and so I don't care. But just because he's abusive towards her physically doesn't mean that not all of her actions go away. It doesn't mean that, he is not also in a way a victim of her abuse, because he is. Because despite the fact that I think he's an abhorrent human being who genuinely should go back to jail, it doesn't take away from the fact that she still called him 50 times and sat outside of his house. It doesn't take away from that. And it puts me in this really uncomfortable position where I feel like I am defending Nader, which is genuinely the last thing I want to do, because y'all know I really dislike this man. But it puts me in that position where I have to go, okay, yeah, but Chantal also sucks. Because while I don't believe in blaming the victim, in this one situation, unfortunately, Chantal does bear some of the weight here. She literally went into this with eyes wide open. You can't sit there and claim to be, the most victimized victim of all times when he could not even come to you to perpetrate anything against you. You are the one who chose to go back despite multiple people warning you multiple times. And I understand that a lot of times, victims of abuse will go back to their abusers. But the power dynamic in those relationships is significantly different. I want you to go back and take a look at some of the literature surrounding emotional abuse, especially, right? When it doesn't tend to be as physical. It's hard to leave someone like that because there's a lot of guilt and a lot of pain in that. But more so than that, a lot of times, the vast majority of the times why women have such a hard time leaving their abuser is because they cannot go anywhere else. There's a lot of like financial issues that go into it. Most of the time, the thing that goes that's most closely associated with physical abuse is financial abuse. Because if your abuser controls all of your money, the biggest thing that you'll hear from them is no one will believe you. And where are you going to go? You don't have any money. You're broke. They drive away all friends and family. And all you're left with is them. And you don't have any other way of surviving. And that's never been true for Chantal. If Chantal left him, her family would take her back in an instant, at least as far as we know. If Chantal left him, she has Pete's to go back to. She has even BB to go back to. She has the internet. She has money. She has a lot of leverage and power in this situation to leave if she so chooses. And she chose every time to go back to him until he chose not to want her anymore. And that's the thing. It's none of that information makes her look any better. It doesn't absolve him of any of the responsibility. But it does paint the picture of a woman who is both vindictive and spiteful and is willing to do a lot when she doesn't get her way, and who has already done a lot, unfortunately. And I don't know if her behavior is going to disqualify her, not disqualify her, but take away from some of the urgency in her case, or even take away or like reduce the burden of proof, or even just like disrupt that. Like, I'm like not making much sense, but what I mean to say is that some of the evidence that they have, that she has given testimony of, or even that she might show online, that I don't know how much weight it's going to hold in front of a judge or anybody else when they see her obvious behavior coupled with the reluctance for people to believe that women are the victims. So it's a little bit of a complicated situation. I hope that I'm wrong. As always with Chantal, a lot of the stuff that she does, I genuinely hope that I'm wrong in this situation, and that she goes on and she presses this case against him, that she wins. But I don't have a lot of hope here. As for him getting arrested, and she's like, oh, well, they released him. They couldn't keep him anyway. He was pulled in for questioning. I don't think they've actually, technically already arrested him and said, we're pressing charges against you. I think they brought him in for questioning. And without pressing charges, you can't actually hold people for longer than 72 hours. Given that he wasn't feeling well, I'm sure that they released him. And I'm also sure that they're not idiots. He probably isn't the first person who came in there saying, oh, I'm not feeling well, I gotta go. They aren't morons. The police aren't stupid like that. Which brings me to an unrelated point that I think Chantal should really listen to. I don't think she watches my videos, but if you guys are her Beezers, if there's anybody in here who are her VI Beezers and she might listen to you, please let her know. The next time she has to speak to the police, take a lawyer with you. It's the number one understood fact that I think everyone should adhere to, and that police themselves have reiterated many times, is never talk to the police without a lawyer for any reason whatsoever. Never do it, ever, okay? Always have a lawyer there. Both Canada and the US will provide you with a public defender. It doesn't matter whether you're guilty or not. Don't talk to the police without a lawyer. Just don't do it. And if you are arrested, the only two things out of your mouth should be, I am exercising my right to remain silent. Don't just stay silent. Actually say those words, because then they can't question you anymore. And say, I want a lawyer. Only two things you should say to the police without your attorney being there. Okay? Chantal should hire a lawyer. She has the money for it. We all know she's not paying her taxes, so she should be able to do that. The blush that I used, by the way, is the Alamar Cosmetics blush in Scorcher. It's this one right here. It is very, very pretty. I really like it. It's got coral in it, a lot of coral. I think it looks very pretty on me. Anyway, and the last thing I'm going to put on is the Nars Orgasm lip gloss thing. I got this in a set at some point, and the set wasn't nice, so I gave it to my sister because it didn't really work with my skin tone. And my sister ended up giving it to her friend because it was too light on her. But I'm going to use this lip gloss because I like it. Anyway, those are all of my thoughts, feelings, and opinions about Chantal. I know that it's a little bit of a complicated situation. There's a lot of people who are mocking her for going to the police. And there's a lot of people who feel that, she should still go to the police and report him despite the fact that it's been a while and all of that stuff. And that, his what he has done deserves to be reported, and I would agree with that. But unfortunately, Chantal's actions don't disappear in light of his behavior. And so I worry that she's going to ultimately end up being the one who gets the most impacted by this filing. I think she's the one who's going to have to suffer the brunt of it. Those are just my 2 cents. Anyway, I hope you guys like this video. Patrons are probably going to get a react today. You guys might get another react tomorrow or Monday. It just depends on when I'm done editing. I actually have the weekend free for the first time in a very, very long time. You guys should know your girl's been busy. And so I figured I would film as much as I can and actually do the things I want to do and not just work all the time and make myself sad. So thank you guys so much for watching. I want to say a thank you to all of my patrons. You guys are the real goats. I love you all. And the fact that, once more, it always blows me away that I have patrons, that I have people who want to watch and listen to me, that somehow my channel is like still kind of growing. All of those things are crazy to me. Thank you guys so much for being here, especially these past couple of weeks have been emotionally draining, would be to put it lightly. I'm just having a little bit of a hard time. It's, for me, I can't speak for everyone, but for me, watching loved ones suffer is a lot harder than suffering myself. I think I have control issues, so you know, easy to control your own suffering, harder to control the suffering of others. And so I've had a little bit of a rough go of it recently. Just keep my family in your prayers. If you are the praying kind, send out good vibrations. Yeah, world's a shit place right now. We could all use a little bit more kindness. So that'll be it from me. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I'm Jasmine, the sequel, and I am not relatable. Peace. A thank you to my patrons: Acrophobe, Ariel M, Christina, Courtney EP, Darkness Dust, Dainty B, Oceana Song, Sidra Z, Colleen L, Debbie E, Juju, Just a Jude, Kate O, Sonia P, and a special thank you to my $25 patrons, D Higgins and Megan O.